This time in Street MBA, I have a very special friend. No, he's an MBA, but the smartest street guy I have ever met. No, the fun is he grew in an era in India where going to IIT was the thing. He grew in a lower middle class family, struggling to make it big, and then he has done what you cannot imagine. Worked for American Express, Goldman Sachs, set up companies, worked for Dalai Lama, made investments, made it big in life. The Silicon Valley expert, you name it. Whatever an individual who wants to make it big in India looks for, he has been there, done that. I have Sam Subramaniam for you, one of my greatest and dearest friends, this time in Street MBA. Let's have some fun, let's talk to him and figure out. Sam, you grew up in a lower middle class in Palakkad, in Kerala. Obviously big pressure on you, Tay and Shesha, everybody from the same area. So what was that one thing when you were growing up as a child, which you remember, which has really played out in your life as you did whatever you did in life to make it big?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you for this opportunity, Tapan, and a great friend. I was born in Palakkad. I grew up in Chennai. See, I'll tell you, I fondly say this. We are born with a set of cards that we are given. Some cards are pretty, powerful. Some cards are not. But that's all we have, right? I'll tell you this, the best thing I have is an amazing family. Bless, wonderful mommy and daddy, brothers and sisters. Great family. We didn't have that much income first, but we had so much love. We had so much connection between each other. The values of the family, I still carry. So it is those things, if you really ask me, I never had a single dull day growing up in my home. Now I may not have had all the things I wanted, that doesn't matter. That didn't matter then and that doesn't matter today. The real thing is we had so much love, we had togetherness, we had each other, and we had the values of mommy and daddy and the family. That was probably what I would say is the most powerful thing.
You know why I asked this question? I think I see this missing in families now. We have become richer as a country, as families. Everybody has their own mobile devices, gadgets, television. Is the love coming down? Because when I look at a lot of successful people in the world today, especially Indians, and I ask this question, what is that one thing which stood by you in difficult times as you made it, in this jungle of civilization or success, whatever you call it? And they always say the family bonding and love when they were a child. And that's why I brought this important lesson. For all of us listening, if that is one thing we're missing in life, let's get that right, because that is going to be really helpful for children when they grow up. Not the richness, not the mobile gadgets, not the television. Now, from there, you went to IIT and you were a topper, and you left to US. And that time, there was huge exodus. And if I look at the US today, and I look at all the CEOs of all these fancy big companies, they're all Indians, somewhere around your age. What happened in that era when all of you brilliant minds moved to US? Why did you do that? Why did you stay back in India then?
You know, we didn't leave India. That's very clear. We graduated from IIT. We were just happy boys and girls. We worked hard. We played a little bit. Not much. But the thing is, we were offered, what we were offered, I'm sure you were in this mix as well at that around the same age. 35, 36, 3,800 rupees was the pay that was offered. And the family that I've come from, and most of the rest of us at that point, and money was important to us, all right? It was very important. I have no shame telling the truth. And on the other hand, we had these fellowships and scholarships and the promise of what America called itself, still calls itself the promised land. America is the promised land. We went seeking that promise because here, my father's retirement pay around that period was about the same as my starting pay. One could look at that and take comfort, or one could look at something much bigger to say, all right, America calls, let's go give it a shot. And we went. So there was an exodus. The important thing is when you are going to go out and start yourself, which I would later learn in my life, your connections, your relationship, your capital, it's all important. We didn't have any of that. We didn't have connections, most of us. We didn't have big relationships, businesses, business families, nothing. Most of us in IIT didn't have that at that time. And definitely we didn't have capital. So when you got a much better job opportunity, we just blindly went to it. This is not because we left India, we just left for a period. That's it.
Hold this dot. We'll connect it with a question which comes later on, and that's why I asked him a specific question. Because when we talk of today, and we feel so immense pride saying that so and so is the CEO of this big, huge global organization is Indian, so and so is the CEO of this huge global organization is Indian, we forget the fact that one, why they left India, and then we'll come back to show how Sam comes back to India and what is it that for a country is required so critical to make it big in this global scenario. We parked that question. Now you've reached US, Sam, and you started doing a lot of research and you started contributing to the government of US, and you did pretty good at that point in time. And then one day, a chance meeting took you to a different job. How did that happen, and how did you decide to move on from the good stuff that you're doing into this?
You know, I was a typical IIT boy. Geeky, likes to do research, likes to get a pat on the back for it, good work. And I got all that. Having a ton of fun, long hair, beard, you know, all the rest of the stuff. All youngsters today want, I had all that. But then, suddenly one day I met this impressive, actually two people. One Englishman, one American. I was deeply impressed the work they do. A company called Booz Allen Hamilton. They've changed names and pieces over the years, but that's the original company's name that I joined. And I was deeply impressed by the people. The one common thing in my life has always been I make decisions based on the people I meet, I work with, I partner with, whatever. I don't necessarily choose companies, I choose people. And that has done well for me. I met these people, I really liked them. Today, he's retired, probably he's pulling 85. He's still my mentor and best friend. Today, he lives up in Newport Beach in California. And the other person, he lives in Virginia. I mean, we still stay in touch, and I still ask his advice. When I made investments in India much later, he came all the way from Calabasas, where he lived then, to India to advise us on some deal. So those relationships, I mean, they are assets. They are very strong, and I'm thankful for it. And that's the reason I left. I had a ball of a time over there in the company.
A lot of people tell me they bet on people, not the company. No. Here, look at what Sam says. Successful job, doing well. He meet these people by accident, spends time with them, and they like him, offer him a job, and he felt so comfortable with these people. He left an established job in a foreign country where he didn't have much people whom he knew, and moves to a new job. And there he assists the government as a consultant with his company and does a lot of stuff. And then suddenly one day, from there he decides to come to India and be in the inner circle of Dalai Lama, MacLeod Ganj. Now you're already living the American dream.
Yeah.
And doing very good. You're one of those successful youngsters, the go-getter, and everybody's very happy with you, and you're making tons of money. Suddenly you leave this and you join Dalai Lama. You have no inclination whatsoever. No, grew up in South Palakkad, Tam Brahmin as you would be, moved to your dream destination of US, successful, MacLeod Ganj, Dalai Lama.
Yeah, I still try sometimes to process all my decisions. The only comment that I can think of is I like to take risk, and I like to push myself and beat the threshold and then get across to the other side. That really gives me a kick. That's what happened here. I had gone from Booz Allen to University of Chicago for business school, and then I had gone to Goldman Sachs. I was happy at Goldman Sachs. Everything was fine. In the middle, I had a twist in my life, you could call it that. 9/11 happened. And while I was not in the buildings or anything, I was somewhat injured. I was shocked by it. And I inhaled a lot of all that stuff, and it really set me back.
Was it traumatic to see people falling down, dying?
Oh,
Like a
it
huge
was-
trauma
yeah.
for you, yeah.
The biggest pain, if you ask me, was not the physical pain alone. It was the emotional trauma. And this is my home. My home was invaded. It was not. It's one thing to say I live in someplace far away and the city was invaded. I was right there in that. It was in my neighborhood. I lived in that neighborhood, right there, few buildings away, across the road, and I was injured, both physically and mentally. Physically, I healed very well, but mentally, this was in my head, yeah. And I was back to work. I was on it. And then, actually, after business school, I went to Goldman Sachs, and I was at Goldman Sachs when this happened. And then, out of the blue, I got this thing saying, "Hey, listen, it's something, and the Dalai Lama." Blah, blah, blah. I've read about the Dalai Lama. I've read about how he was exiled and a few other things. I always have a deep attachment for somebody who seeks freedom, independence, autonomy. Because I'm that kind of guy, so I could relate to that. But the Dalai Lama, I had a fascination for even as a young boy, because he was in India. He was the voice of Tibetan people and Tibetan Buddhism, culture carrier. So I had a deep admiration for the Dalai Lama. But that's it. Then when this call came, it was like some switch went on inside me a little bit, because the trauma I was still carrying. So it was almost like it was like a calling that came to me to remove that shroud of pain from my heart. So without knowing what the outcome would be, I packed a luggage and I flew. And again, I didn't know what I exactly do. I went there and there I was.
When you read about successful people or the ones that you know, you'll observe one common thing. In their life, something happens and the opportunity comes to them and they take it. Now, a lot of people say that, okay, they got the opportunity, we didn't. I think we are wrong. We also get the opportunity, we don't see it. We question too much. We think too much of the risk. The successful ones, the moment it comes, they're natural. Risk is not something they're afraid of. They just plunge into it wholeheartedly and give it their best. And that's a learning that we have here, because otherwise, why somebody work in Goldman Sachs, go to Dalai Lama's inner core, to talk of getting things done. And then when he reaches there, you have all these PhDs, like very talented people in his inner circle. And here this person coming from Goldman Sachs, and now he's to ensure that he's able to get the strategy and thoughts through with these people. How do you do that? All these so-called enlightened souls, peaceful ones, and you the rest are like eternally unrestful soul in that, and try to influence them. This is an interesting story. I've always heard of these monks influencing everybody else. Now a reverse, huh? I have this Ferrari guy influencing monks. How did this happen, Sam?
No, this was it's a very good question actually. I was scared to start with. Actually, I remember I was in a pub in New York City on my way out. I was going to fly the next day or the day after. I just would meet a fella who would later become my best friend. He was also, I was just telling him the story like I told you. And he was having a beverage with me. And then the guy would leave his job, take a leave of absence from one of the largest banks in the world he worked, and come with me. Really? And yeah, my articulation or my passion for what I was going to do intoxicated him. And he got intoxicated in the group, and today he still remains one of my best friends. Yeah? So I won that as well. See, sometimes when you really believe in something, you convince yourself, you drink that Kool-Aid so much it becomes you. And then you have no other choice but to succeed, because what do? You don't give yourself an option of failure. You're just so drunk inside that feeling of taking that risk, you eliminate that risk. You keep on peeling the risk and you go straight in. And it looks very difficult for a person looking at it from the outside. The truth is you're a little bit blind, a little bit foolhardy. You just go straight in. And I think that's what happened. Because I had a healthy fear in me. What will I do there? This is developing an integrated development plan for the Central Tibetan administration. I've not done that. And this is governance involved, religion involved, politics involved, economics involved. Economics I understand. Some part of corporate governance I understand. Politics, religion, I'm not an expert. And as it turns out, I go there and all I did, I just asked, met all these supremely qualified people, 1-2 PhDs each, monks, but they're not They are very, very well educated, sophisticated, and the degrees are from all over the world. Okay, and they are His Holiness's advisors. And I would sit with them and I'll listen. As I listened, I learned that the answers are already there. The answers I don't need to bring. My job is to integrate, create some alignment of thought, and produce something. And that's what I did. And I then developed again a lifelong friendship with the head of the planning council. You could say the equivalent of a minister of planning for the government. And in fact, he had been to visit me in Bombay a few months ago. So we are, again, another lifelong friendship from that. So we put together several different ideas that range from strategy on where people will be placed, to farming, to education, different things. And the learning from that I still carry today, because most of the times what it is not what we see to the naked eye. When you peel it here and there, the answers are sitting right there. So we don't need to dig for the answers, we just need to be curious and go into the crevasses, and they exist.
The biggest learning. See, he said he did not even know the job when he took the risk. But see his confidence, see what he said. He was so immersed in it that there's no scope of failure. That is the way it is. So even though he is that alpha, successful male with all the wealth, but deep in, he has the attribute of a monk. And that's why I asked a question about the Ferrari going to the monk. Spiritualism is not something that only when you renounce the world and put on a robe that you become spiritual. Spiritual is something which inherently would be there in each one of us. As I always said, physically strong, mentally strong, and spiritually strong makes you hyper successful. And this is why I brought this to you, to see that a person from US doing brilliantly well in the capitalist world moves as one of the advisors to Dalai Lama and his team together to see what can be done. Does it very well, and one, he did not fear the risk. Second, he did not know the job. Putting it all together and making a huge difference. And then from there he moves back to US as the strategy guy for American Express chairman, and then he's again handling back to the world. Then he leaves his job and starts his own company or investment wing and comes to India. Let's hear this part of Sam's story. So how, after doing all that, then again you're back to US, then again very successful, you drop it again and then start an investment wing. How do you do this, Sam?
I love my job. There was no problem with it. We were doing good stuff. Markets were boiling. There were lots of things going on post the dot-com bubble. Markets were already on the way back up. The thing was, when I finished the work in McLeodganj, I spent some time, a month in India, studying what's going on in the economy. What was interesting, Tapan, the India I left in 1988 and the India I looked at in 2003 January, very different countries. There was a spring in the air, right? It was morning in India. That's how I felt. I felt there was a good positive energy in people. People were not complaining as much as they did. There was hope in the air. And that really made me question, kuch to ho raha hai. And then I went back and I would sit down and talk to my friends, my old bosses. Listen, there's something going on. There's something going on. And I would study, read. Enough of us, including some very close friends of my own family, we've written off that India will innovate, India will grow, India will grab opportunities. But all that was put to question, one after another. Clearly, it took 2 years for me to convince a group of close friends to say, let's explore and do something. 2-3 years, but at the same time I was working at Amex, and then in 3 years we came together, we came to India. So again, there was a bit of unknown there. We did some work, but listen, leaving nice paying jobs and nice careers in New York to come here was a big decision. But you know what, at that time it didn't feel like it was such a big decision, because we were conquering or hoping to conquer something substantially more meaningful, and then there we were. So while it looks more difficult from the outside, that decision wasn't that difficult.
He makes all difficult decisions look so easy. Now why I said we hold the first dot when he left India, and that is the era when a lot of brilliant minds went to US, and today they are doing very good and having big organizations. In 2003, again Sam saw India has changed. There's no more that minuscule offering for talent which it was in the era when these brilliant minds left. It was a land of opportunities, very powerful, very big, and 3 successful business leaders quit their job, put together a fund for Investment India, and they came Invest in India and made it very big here. And this is why I said we'll hold that first dot, connect this dot. My belief is now in India, super talent is super excited being here. And my only hope and pray for India is that this remains for a longer time, and then we will not only see global CEOs who are Indian, we'll see global companies leading India. I think that is what I am super excited about. It's going to happen, and that's why I said let's hold the dots together till we connect it and put it here. Now in India, you have been doing so good, and then you set up this investment firm, and because your mother went back to US, and now you're back in India as a CEO of one of the leading brands here.
Yeah.
And again, this in 2 years you've built up considerably from knowing nothing about it. The last bit of a story before we sum it up.
So yes, I was in India, in and out, but working, investing, learned a lot. We did a lot of good stuff in India, in different parts of India and different verticals of India. I learned a lot, and then mummy went through a very difficult health situation, and that was a wake-up call. I'm a family guy. I'm very fond of my family and extremely fond of my mummy and daddy. So that was a calling that stayed inside, and I've learned through my life that when something calls inside, I don't resist it so much. I go. So I went back to New York, and I would build a restaurant in New York, a beautiful restaurant, a modern Indian kitchen called Soho Tiffin. Took off very well, did very well, became the second ranked Indian destination, Indian restaurant in New York City, which is, in New York City, that's a tough ask. And so I was there. And then after a year and a half, 2 years in New York, I went to spend time with my parents in California. They lived in California. And then out of the blue, I received a call from a company I work for, Times of India Group, Times Group. And again, the answer there is people. I know it's a very famous name, very old company, household name in India and many countries. Advertisers swear by it, ad agencies, people, readers. I mean, every constituency you can think of in India admires Times of India. Having said that, to me, it was a few people that I met on video calls and connected and chatted to my immediate boss, my shareholders. I met them, my immediate boss's CEO. I really like them. And to this day, 2 years in, I still like them as much as I liked them the very first call I did. To me, that matters a lot. And so again, it was not such a difficult decision, even though I moved once again from San Francisco Bay Area back to Bombay. It was again not a very difficult decision. No, I'm having a ball of my life. I'm having a ton of fun. I didn't know anything about media. All I knew was spelling of the word media. And here I am, I've learned media on the job at nights. And it's fun. And the company is open to some of my ideas. I'm completely open to everything the company has, and strength, history, assets, people. And we put everything together and we catalyze and we create a nice brew. So it works. I'm happy.
See, I promised you that this is going to be a very interesting person. A young boy from a lower-class family. The only capital he had was what he could gain as knowledge, prepare for exams, moves to a new land, and goes through different cycles, faces 9/11, works for some of the biggest companies, comes back, works with the Dalai Lama, goes back, sets up a restaurant, comes here now and does investment, then becomes CEO for the leading publications in India. Can you imagine? So much to learn from just one person. All they talk about risk-taking, being confident about the job that you get. If you do not know about it, how to immerse yourself in it, how to have faith on people, how to have belief in yourself, how even when you go through adversities, you bounce back, how to relish life. You hear his closing sentence. He's saying he's having ton of fun. Every time he says so. He also says decision was easy. But if you think about it, it's not easy. This is how you become successful and you make it big in life. A good learning for all of us. Let's have some fun till we see you again in the next Street MBA episode. Thank you, my friend. All
Thank
of the
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.